Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Nvidia daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Nvidia stock. Let's go over what is happening to the stock, what we can expect moving forward, and all that good stuff. So ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you do enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., well, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day the market is open. That link is down below in the description of the video, where again, constantly sharing my thoughts, post updates as the market is trading every single day, mainly on Tesla stock, sometimes other stocks. And it's just $3 a month. The link is in the description of the video. The first link in the description of the video, you'll see a little Tesla guy, a little YouTube kind of clickable icon, if you will, almost. Yeah, you click that and you're good to go if you want to join, of course. Or for $5 a month, you get access to everything in the $3 tier I just mentioned, plus NVIDIA daily updates if you're interested. A lot of people actually have been joining the NVIDIA updates, or the tier, so thank you. But yeah, jumping into it. NVIDIA closing the day with a very respectable 5% day on the day, closing at just shy of, we'll say, $125 per share, which obviously compared to the market is a very respectable outperformance today, especially off of AMD's. Poor AMD, man. Nice recovery for the day, though. Nice recovery for the day. My sold puts are being saved, thankfully. But yeah, anyways, this is an NVIDIA video. So what is NVIDIA doing, right? So we mentioned how NVIDIA, like I said, I think it's closer to a bottom than not, right? And, I still stand by that. Obviously, it's a little bit now. Okay, I'm not gonna say it's overextended. It's definitely not overextended. But obviously, up here, it's not as. It's closer to a bottom than not as it was, down here, like I was saying. But I still think it's looking great. It's definitely not overextended. I'll tell you that right now. But, there are issues, right? Now that we have, of course, haven't, had this little bit of a rally, we're starting to enter some issues. And I'll go over what those issues could be, right? But, I don't think that the move up is going to be so simple and crystal clear, and this is where it's starting. It's time to start talking about, the bullish problems, we'll say. So what are the problems here? Before I go into I guess this is the more bearish side of the video, and then I'll go over to the more bullish side, of course. Now, I want to start off with the 1 hour chart. Why do I want to start off with the 1 hour chart? Well, because this kind of shows you a bit of more of the micro moves that we're experiencing right now, and what I personally think, has a good chance of happening next. So, obviously we had that massive gap down. We kind of went sideways, and we had this little, liquidity grab, essentially, if you will, potential, head right here for the potential inverted head and shoulders coming up, which is one of the things I'll be talking about very soon. But ultimately, what's happening is this. So this right here, this area, this little, rectangle, if you will, that I drew, is essentially a liquidity zone now, right? This is a zone where, it's kind of like a fair value gap-ish, where, if there's a place for, the stock to start getting rejection, if there's a place for, bearish order flow to really start coming in, yeah, it's pretty much right around here, right? 124 to potentially even as high as 126 roughly. That kind of $2-ish range. Yeah, this is where, we can potentially start experiencing problems because it's kind of like that pivot point from back here. So watch for this, $2 range to start slowing us down, right? To start slowing us down a little bit. I don't expect us. I mean, we could. I'm not saying we can't. I just, as of right now, again, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a little bit more of a pop. Maybe we go to 125, maybe even, peak our head into 126s. But again, I expect us to get a potential bit of a rejection from here and make our way back down a bit, right? Now, mainly because, of course, of this, being a kind of a, there's a specific name for it. I'm like blanking out, maybe because I'm sick still. There's a specific name for this. I think it's called liquidity sweep. No, there's a name for this, man. I'm blanking out. Anyways, I'm sure people that are watching this, you probably know what I'm talking about. Anyways, so that's number one, right? But of course, number two is on the 1 hour, we're at the top of the Bollinger Band, the RSI on the 1 hour is a bit overbought rather, excuse me. And of course, the stochastic on the 1 hour is a bit into the more overextended territory. So, very short term, you can argue we're a little bit overextended, right? Very, very short term, maybe a little bit overextended. So bit of a pullback from this general vicinity up here is to be expected. So I'm just kind of saying that if it happens, hey, don't be worried, right? Don't be worried. That's perfectly normal, right? So that's kind of my more, perspective, I guess, if you will, on a more shorter time frame. Now let's go back to maybe a 4 hour chart, or actually let's go to the daily. We'll go straight to the daily, right? Now, remember how I was saying back when we were down here, this is the level where I started looking for bottom signals, right? Some bottom signal. Now, one of the bottom signals I mentioned, it could be that bullish head and shoulders pattern. And this is what I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of potentially start forming. Now, this is obviously me thinking well in advance, but actually back to the 1 hour chart, if we do get a potential, rejection from here, there is a chance that we come back down to about, 120 roughly, 119, 120. That is actually a possibility that we come back down one more time. But what is that going to start creating, right? That's going to start creating that bullish head and shoulders pattern where we have this left shoulder here, we have the head here, and then we'll start setting up that right shoulder, and that'll be a very, very bullish looking situation, right? On the daily, same idea. We came down, right? Massive gap down, right? And now we essentially make this little head and shoulders pattern like this, right? Nice looking little head and shoulders pattern that can look something like this, and we're good to go. So that's kind of, one aspect I'm potentially looking for as a possibility. Now, whether or not that actually happens, I mean, obviously nobody knows. I'm, kind of just trying to look into my crystal ball here. But, based on how the structure is setting up, it just wouldn't fully surprise me if we form something that looks like a potential inverted head and shoulders. Let's see, of course, obviously, you never know, but, that's something to watch out for. Now, the other thing to watch out for on the more, bearish side, of course, if it actually happens, is going to be, actually, let me switch this back to, I want to make sure this is only on the 1 hour. I don't want this to be on the other time frames. There we go. It was a little too messy. Anyway, so back to the 4 hour chart. Remember the 4 hour chart back when we initially had this drop, we had that little push back up, and then I talked about how this overall range right here, of course, was a massive area of support back here, and then obviously resistance here, and then we ended up selling off, right? Well, that hasn't changed, right? So if we do end up coming back up into this general vicinity, this area will still continue being a potential massive area of supply, right? Massive area of supply that could potentially cause, still another severe rejection. So in other words, Nvidia on the, 4 hour, the daily especially chart, it really needs to reclaim the low 130s. Very, very crucial that does happen for it to really truly get that bullish reversal back upwards, and we see an actual meaningful move back up. If we want to see all-time highs, essentially, right? If you want to see all-time highs, the low to even arguably close to the mid 130s, it needs to be recaptured, man. That needs to be recaptured. The bullish Nvidia troops essentially need to get sent back out to the field to war with the bears, and they have to recapture that area and essentially reclaim that battalion, right? Very, very important that does happen. So let's watch for that. Now, obviously, we're a bit of a ways away from there, but this is more, again, thinking a little bit ahead. So you're kind of prepared for it in case it happens very quickly. Who knows, right? And then, of course, you have the reversion to the mean, right? The reversion to the mean also kind of lines up pretty well with what I just showed on the 4 hour chart, which, again, if it takes a couple more days, let's say maybe Friday, maybe even early next week, this will slowly make its way back down to us, and it'll probably meet us somewhere in the middle, also, again, at about maybe 129, 130, something like that. And that would be essentially that reversion back to the mean, which also should be a bit of an area of resistance. So it's essentially what I'm saying is I don't expect Nvidia to just blast off, well back into all-time highs from here. It's gonna, at the end of the day, this kind of fall will have some form of punishment, right? Whether that's punishment of just, we get a sharp rejection and maybe even make a lower low, technically possible. I don't think that's going to happen, but technically it's something that you shouldn't completely disregard as long as we remain below 130s, low 130s, or at the very least, some decent sideways action, from this in this general kind of vicinity here, right? That's also a possibility. So just watch for those levels, right? Watch for those levels. Again, if you want to see all-time highs, the low 130s to mid, even closer to the mid 130s, pretty much is a must reclaim for the bulls. Now, the more bullish perspective is, of course, well, I still think the stock is, on the weekly especially, is still pretty oversold, right? We could be potentially setting up a bullish piercing pattern on the weekly, which could be a nice reversal pattern. That could be a good sign moving forward if the bulls, again, want to reclaim the low 130s roughly. So we'll see how the weekly candle, of course, closes. But we did reclaim the 200 EMA, which is good, right? We took the 200 EMA, which is this blue line, and we did reclaim it. Which is good. That's a nice sign to see. And again, wouldn't be surprised. Again, that's also pretty much 120. Come back down to it, and once again, turn it into a support, set up that potential bullish head and shoulders pattern, and then from there, we essentially move back up and get a true strong test of 130. Because again, you kind of almost want to look at this as like a game, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, the market is a game, right? And it's almost like, we kind of, it's almost like playing like Warcraft or something like that, or like Starcraft, or we kind of like almost like created the troops here. We made the troops to make this push back up, the bullish troops, right? And we did. And now what we want to do, it was a battle, it's a war, maybe we lost some troops on the way. And now it's almost like we come back down to this 120 region. We kind of, okay, we won the battle, but we want to win the war too. We come back down, back into our base, refuel, recreate the troops, replenish the army, if you will, with bullish reinforcements, if that makes sense, which would be that essential move back down to about 120, believe it or not, right? That creates that bullish pattern, and it essentially it's kind of like a slingshot. Like you're pulling back that slingshot even more, so that when you finally let go, that shot really matters. And that's kind of what that's a kind of like a way of like psychologically thinking about how the stock could potentially react. And again, if it does make its move back down to about that 120s, that's essentially what we're doing. We're pulling back that slingshot for that bullish shot at the low 130s, so that it's hopefully even more meaningful and more impactful for when we do go for that attempt, essentially to reclaim that lost territory, if that makes sense. Again, that's just a way of hopefully that makes sense, right? I'm always a big gamer, but again, when you take these kind of aspects, it kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense, and that's kind of what these bullish patterns kind of do, right? It kind of gives you that moment to really refuel, to really just make sure that next push up has a lot of kind of momentum behind it. And that's essentially what could happen. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. Maybe we don't come back down here. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if we do, essentially, is what I'm saying. So let's watch for that moving forward, right? But I do like the fact that we continued, we broke it back above the 200 EMA, which is about 120, of course. I want to make sure we continue holding that. As long as we continue holding that, we're good to go. But I think for the short term for now, this 1 hour perspective, I think is probably the most interesting one. So just watch for this. Watch for this area up here, and then watch for potential rejection. I think from there, potentially set up for the next bullish leg, and then we go up even higher. That's kind of what I expect right now. So let's see. Let's take a quick look at options flow very quickly and see what the bulls are thinking, of course, or the bears. Wow, that's insane. I mean, it's okay. They are leaps, like a year and a half, even maybe slightly more than a year and 3/4 leaps. Actually, probably even more, honest, almost even 2 years, honestly. About a year and 3/4 leaps over here. You can see all of them are for September 18th, 2026. Pretty much all of them. 165 strike, but several million. But again, it's far out. So, when you see these kind of things, it's exciting. It is exciting, but don't get too excited short term, because there could still be issues, blah, 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 blah. Long term, though, a year from now, we're probably going to be higher than this. Let's be completely real here. Nvidia is probably going to be higher than where it is today. And that's all that matters. At the end of the day, that's really what matters, which is good. So I like to see that. That's very, very bullish. But again, there's a lot of time behind this. So don't expect this to happen starting tomorrow, right? If they thought this move will happen, within the next few days, they wouldn't be buying them almost 2 years out in expiration. I'm just saying. In terms of confirmed options flow, bearish or bullish, Nvidia with 20 million confirmed bullish flow, which is a good sign to see. But yeah, this is kind of my rough perspective right now on Nvidia. Overall bullish structure forming, but again, it might take some time. This next push to 130 will be very important if we break past it or not. If we don't, I think Nvidia will be due for some more sideways consolidation, most likely in this pretty much where we are right now, for potentially a little bit, honestly. But if we break above 130 and we reclaim it, I think we will most likely make our way to all-time highs probably pretty quickly. So it really just comes down to that next push we get into the 130s and how good the bulls do, essentially. But yeah, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.